First, give me your full name and how you would describe yourself.
As of today?
Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Mike Eldon. I've been a member of the Rotary Club of Nairobi since 1978, and I joined 1 year after I arrived here in Kenya. It transformed my life.
And you arrived in 1977.
Yes.
What did you initially come to Kenya for?
I had been working for a British computer multinational. We called them computer firms those days. The term IT had not yet been coined. And I'd been with them since 1967 when I graduated in London. And they asked me to come here to be the general manager of their Kenya subsidiary.
Okay. So when you came here in 1977, did you have any inclination that you were going to join the Rotary Club, or was it something that kind of happened almost by accident, or from maybe an accidental meeting or something of that nature?
Well, as you know, Fareed, it's not your inclination, you're invited. And one of my customers, to whom we had sold a computer, was a member of the Rotary Club of Nairobi. His name was Bob Chase. And I guess he must have thought I'd be okay as a member, and he invited me to join. And again, as you know, he invited me for a few lunches. People got to know me. I felt, yes, it sounds like a good place to be part of. And he proposed me.
Right. And obviously, we'll get to your service in Rotary as we continue the conversation. But, you know, if you could take me back to that first maybe Rotary event or first Rotary meet and greet or first Rotary meeting that you attended, if you can remember it vividly, and I'm sure you can, what was it like for you the first time entering that kind of environment?
You know, in those days, and for a long time, we were known as the Rotary Club of Nairobi. It really was an elite group of characters. Of course, there were no women at that time, and I was by far the youngest member, by far. I was 32 years old. And around me were much older men by and large, and mainly white, including their hair, if any. There were some non-whites at the time already, including Manu Chandaria, Joe Wanjui, Yusuf Kodovola, and a few others. We had already moved away from the original colonial settler type of setup that it was when it was founded in 1930. But it was a predominantly old, white, male elite group. And I felt very privileged to be part of it. I was very welcomed, and these people became very close friends. And we met at the New Stanley. I walked down there from Bruce House, where my office was. Sometimes if I was going somewhere else, I would just park on Standard Street, which was no problem at the time. And I just looked forward to those Thursday lunches.
And you know, we're talking 1978, so, well, that's quite some time ago. 50, 40?
40-something years,
40, yeah. I'll tell you now because I was born in 74, so 43 years. Yeah, 43 years ago. You said that it was already, as much as it was predominantly white, it was already not quite diverse, a little bit diverse. A bit diverse. Yes. And that was obviously still much further ahead than the country was in terms of diversity.
Yes, I suppose so. And Joe Wanjui had been our first African president, I think in 1976. And Jerry Awar, a very senior African Kenyan, he was a member, and several others. So it was a nice mix and a fast evolving one.
Sure. You know, we'll talk now about Rotary in general. You know, you're 32 years old, you've been invited to be a Rotarian, obviously very young for the Rotary Club, even by today's standards, I would imagine. You know, how did that shape, let's talk about the next decade of your life, 78 to 88. How did that shape you being a Rotarian at such a young age, and obviously, a year into Kenya, you all of a sudden have this group that you said you became very close to. How did that shape the next decade of your life?
It made me appreciate that people saw me as a leader. Within a very short number of years, within 2 years, I chaired the Community Service Committee. And by 1986, I was the chairman, as we used to call ourselves in those days. There was only one president. And so there I was, 1986, the chairman of people who were universally older than me. And it was okay. The other aspect of being on par with all these outstanding Kenyans, very prominent, many of them public figures, of course, was our service projects. And ever since I joined, and until today, I strongly recommend to people that they should join organizations like Rotary for their personal development, for their leadership development skills. You join committees and boards much sooner than you would in your professional life, typically. And you learn about how meetings are run, how boards work, how minutes are taken. You learn about project management, about fundraising. You learn about development. You're at a micro level what development partners and governments do, and now governments at the subnational level, what they do at the national level. And I call it cost-free, risk-free development.
And you're describing something that's quite unique. I've never actually thought about it this way. You do learn so much being in Rotary, and exactly how meetings are run, how minutes are taken, etc., etc. Your success in your career moving forward from 1977 until now, would it have been the same without your involvement in Rotary?
Who knows? Who knows? What I know is that Rotary taught me so much, and integrated with that, it integrated me into Kenya through the members that I became friends with as a newly arrived expatriate. And I particularly recommend to expatriates that they join Rotary, because they tend to find it hard to move beyond their expatriate circles. Even those who would like to, they don't know how to do it. And the Kenyans to whom they're exposed are, in those days, were by and large their domestic staff, junior people, because they were expatriates, at all the higher levels. And so here was an opportunity to be exposed to Africans, Asians, whatever, at an elite level, and to change your perception as an expatriate of living in a country like Kenya. And then, of course, going into the communities and seeing what it's like at the grassroots, and working with young people and underprivileged people and people who needed eye operations or whatever. It's an extraordinary education, never mind that you're helping them and feeling good about it, but how much you're learning, and you become an expert in Kenya and what's going on and how development works and what all the challenges are.
And how crucial is Rotary to that development in Kenya? I mean, globally, we can talk about from a global perspective in any country in the world, but let's bring it home to where we are. How important is that development assistance that Rotary offers in a country like Kenya? And then we'll get into things that you've been specifically involved in.
Over the years since I joined, more and more Rotary clubs have been started. And particularly with devolution, with the founding of the counties, more and more clubs away from the capital and the other bigger cities and towns. And so its influence now is nationally widespread. It makes its contribution, but a lot of it is done actually very quietly. Rotary always looks for publicity because we're proud of what we do, and it's good that people know our contribution, but it's awfully hard. It's bad news that media want to cover, not good news.
Sure.
Other than a picture caption. In too many projects, you invite the media to come. You have to pay. Are you prepared to do that? No. And we're not doing it for the glory. The purpose of projecting the image of Rotary, as much as anything, is to encourage other people to join Rotary so we can do more of it. But if we can't, we can't. And I've never been one who's been so anxious about the limited media coverage we get, knowing why we can't.
Right. And some of the specific projects, and you said some are less known or not known, and some obviously are widely known. What are some of the specific projects that you would say were crucial to the development of Kenya, and also that you were most proud of to be a part of?
Let me start with when I was chairman. One of my key objectives that I was determined to achieve was the relaunch of our Rotaract Club for the 18 to 30-year-olds. Recently it's been relaxed, the upper age limit, but we had had one before, and for some reason it had faded out. It is such a wonderful organization, Rotaract, and I had to figure out how to get it going. I was running not the computer company I came with, but another one, and I asked two of my staff if they'd have a go at starting it. One was an engineer, one was a salesman, and they did. And one was the founder, chairman of it, the next one succeeded him. And the founder one was Henry Njoroge, who went on to a very prolific career in IT. And the other one who succeeded him eventually became the general manager of Africa Online, which then was the prominent internet service provider. And on the day he was appointed, he came to see me to tell me that had it not been for Rotaract, he would not have got the job.
Right.
Had it not been for his leadership development in Rotaract and in the IT company whose CEO I was, he would not have. But why did I ask him to start the Rotaract? Because I saw the leadership potential in him. So starting that Rotaract Club, which is the Rotaract Club of Nairobi Central, by far the most prominent Rotaract club, I feel so good that it has gone from strength to strength until today. Another one that I mention is the first assignment I was given in Rotary when I joined, and that was careers guidance. I'd been here a year. People were applying for jobs to my computer company, fresh graduates of the University of Nairobi, at the time the only university, and at the time only young men. Mm-hmm. And they were doing an awful job in the interviews. They had no idea what they were offering and why I should be interested in them, and they had no idea what I was looking for. And therefore they had no idea how to go through interviews, how to write CVs. And so I decided I would help students at the University of Nairobi to be better prepared for life after university. And by then I had also already been appointed to be on the board of advisors of ISEC, AIE-SEC, the International Economic Students Association, where I'd had some internships in the mid-60s when I was an undergraduate. And it was just launching in Kenya, but already doing well. And they arranged half-day workshops, I think we didn't have that term then either, for groups of undergraduates, 200, 250 at a time, where I would help them do this self-exploration, that missing first component of the process, to make them better at marketing themselves effectively. And it was a great learning experience to me, not only in the whole business of who am I and what am I offering, what are people looking for, how do you put the two together, but also in how to facilitate interactive sessions with large numbers of undergraduates who then, as now, only expect to be lectured at.
Right.
And it showed me that it was possible, not from minute one, but the more I did of these, the more I saw how over the first half hour I would get them to relax and to be able to express themselves, accepting that they had something of interest to say on such a personal subject as themselves, which they'd never thought about at all before and never thought they could or should or it was appropriate to do. And it's the sort of work that I've been doing ever since, not just with young people, but including with young people, including through Rotary and elsewhere, including as a coach, as a leader and so forth, that was kicked off in 1977 when I had that first job in Rotary.
Right. And I mean, this is times.
Within Rotary?
Yeah.
Currently, on the board of the Rotary Club of Nairobi as the leadership advisor. Because in my life these days as a director and as a management consultant, and what I write about in my Business Daily column, a lot of it is about leadership and different aspects that enable someone to be an effective leader. And so the question within our Rotary Club is, what value add am I in relation to that subject? And it's interesting how it has evolved, because at the beginning of the year, I said to our present president, Gideon Akwabi, Gideon, let's identify where we as Rotarians, you, the board, the membership at large, feel we have gaps in leadership. And then we can talk about how to fill those gaps. But somehow, no one ever got round to identifying those gaps. I had a sense of what they might be, but I wanted to make it demand-driven. Then, some months ago, we started our book club. Our wonderful member Nelson started the book club, and he asked me to have this glorious title of patron. and I moderated the first session on Obama's book, The Promised Land, and I moderated another one later on Adam Grant's wonderful book, Think Again. And in that one, I decided, let us apply the issues raised by Adam Grant to our club as to where our Rotarian members need to think again, including in leadership, and how the board operates, and how members communicate on the WhatsApp group, and how when we have delicate issues on the accounts or some project, how we resolve them through effective communication that builds consensus and sorts those problems out without having people get agitated, offended, and so forth. So that's my current within Rotary activity on leadership. And indeed, it's a reflection of how I view my contribution anywhere I am, whether as the chairman of a company or as a consultant. My theme is aligning energy. In order not to have wasted energy on unnecessary conflict, confrontation, emotional negativity, poor communications, misunderstanding, etc. And in this spirit of aligning energy, the way to avoid that is by developing emotional intelligence, the ability to interact effectively and enjoyably with people, including when one disagrees, and being open about it, but leading to a resolution. What kind of resolution? A win-win one, where everyone is adequately satisfied. And it implies give and take, not necessarily even at a point in time, but over time.
And do you feel that's a great system method? Do you feel that Rotary, these 40 odd years, have lent to that that system that you have, which is the win-win, sort of sit down at a table, kind of have a discussion and come to a resolution? Do you think Rotary was part of that journey?
Very much so. And by the way, when you say at a table, much of this has to happen before people gather around the table,
right,
one-on-one. So by the time they get to the table, it's pretty much sorted out.
Got you. So has Rotary been a big part of where you are now? I mean, obviously where you are now.
And how I wanted to respond to that is that in Rotary we are volunteers. We decide whether to join or not. We decide how active to be and where to be active. And so in leadership, there is no greater challenge of leadership than in leading volunteers. You have this choice whether to stay and be active or to withdraw because they don't feel you're motivating.
And there's no paycheck at the end of the month.
There's no paycheck, you can't promote, demote, hire, fire, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you motivate people, build teams, have the different components of Rotary work well with each other, different projects, the finance and fundraising and all these other support functions, how do they all work with our trust and everything so that you can get the best effect without wasting energy on inactive members,
sure,
where there's no energy utilized, it's not available, and on active ones with high ego and confrontational approaches. And what I've said for many years now is that if you can lead Rotary or other volunteer organizations, business member organizations, and I continue to be very active with KEPSA, for instance, the private sector umbrella body. If you can lead there, you can lead anywhere.
Right, and that's a very valid point you make. If you're there on your own will, and you can leave on your own will. And if you're doing the sort of heavy lifting during that period, then obviously it's something that. Would you say, in fact, that it's a calling?
Of course, it's a calling, and when we reach out to someone to join Rotary, it's because we have assessed that they have that calling, that they want to help others whilst enjoying the friendship, the fellowship of like-minded people. And what's clear is that you can do this by yourself, but how much more can you do when you synergize with others, not only in your own club, but between clubs and internationally and so forth, having the whole might of Rotary behind you and alongside you.
And how important is it, we're winding up here, but how important is it for, when I say young people, do I mean, teenagers? No. 20s, when you've entered your sort of work life and you're starting to get ahead, how important is it for someone, in your opinion, as someone who served in Rotary for 44 odd years, how important is it for someone to take that step? I mean, obviously you're invited. If you're invited, how important is it for someone to take that step and become a Rotarian?
It has to be the right time of life. If you're overcommitted in your job, if you're a young parent, maybe particularly a mother, it may be too challenging right now. You have to assess, because you don't want to join and then not be able to be available. There are different phases of life, and maybe when you join you are available, but then after a few years you have to go off to, included all of East Africa, Zambia, and all the Indian Ocean islands. There was no Rotary in Ethiopia at that time because it was which hasn't started yet, and then socialist countries didn't allow it. There wasn't the freedom of gathering and so forth. And so it was wonderful to attend district conferences in all of these countries and to link up with Rotarians in Mauritius, in Madagascar, in Lusaka, and elsewhere. And it made one so aware of the globality of Rotary and how important it is to collaborate across countries and internationally. So that was one good one. The other one that was so rewarding is I was involved in the first rally for the handicapped, as we call it. It's called the Sunshine Rally now. And that was in 1980. And it's been an annual event ever since, where we get several thousand children, some blind, some deaf, some physically challenged, some mentally so. And to be with them for a day is an extraordinary experience, and to see how cheerful they are, how friendly, and how amazingly self-reliant given the challenges they face. In that first year, I was responsible for the entertainment, for the activity, and we bring in quite prominent groups and individuals who are thrilled themselves to be part of this uplifting day. So this Sunshine Rally in its first years was wonderful to be part of. And finally, again, right at the beginning, my company ICL had software for a business management game. And it was possible to link my company's product with Rotary and the nation to have a national business management game. And teams joined and paid a subscription, and they competed, and there was a winner. And each iteration, each week, someone wrote an article about what was going on for the nation. And it was very educational, as business management games are. The funds from the subscriptions went to pay for the expenses of a student who would gain a scholarship to the Mediterranean Institute of Management in Cyprus. So there's a very prominent university, links with Harvard and so on. And we had that scholarship because one of our members, Phil Gramanopoulos, was from Cyprus, and he had obtained it. And so he and I were the panel in late 1970s interviewing candidates for this scholarship. And they included Rotaractors. And the one who gained the scholarship, one of the Rotaractors, was a chap we called Young Steve in those days. Now we know him as Kalonzo Musyoka.
Wow. That's incredible.
So Rotaractor Musyoka went to Cyprus. He came back, and he'd just graduated in law. He came back and he joined Kaplan and Stratton, whose senior partner was a member of our Rotary Club, and he joined our Rotary Club. Then Manu Chandaria employed him as legal person within Comcraft, and then he became an MP, etc., etc. But from time to time, when we bump into him, he's always so grateful for what Rotary did for him. And a few weeks ago, he featured in a meeting of the Rotary Club of Mombasa, where the theme was peace. And you know, Musyoka has been a great peace builder. And I was asked to be part of that program where I referred to some of this history.
That's wonderful. You had brought some things out to share with us. What do we have here?
Well, we have here the award for 50 years of service from Rotary International, which was 11th September 1980 in recognition of our golden wedding anniversary. Seems so very simple. And this one here is photographs when Diamond Lalji was our chairman.
Right.
And I was asked to organize a team building event for the incoming board. And here are photographs of these people in their outdoor experiential learning, including here Eric Crystal, who died a couple of years ago, Michael Fairhead, Christian Nockenauer, Evelyn Mungai, and Jonathan Campaign, and many others. So that one I brought to show.
Incredible.
And this one here is a poem I wrote about past district governors and their high egos.
Are you going to read it for us?
Irritating some of them they were.
Can you read it for us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think this was the district conference in Mauritius, where Yusuf Kodavala was handing over, and some of the past district governors then, not now, then, were real troublemakers of extraordinarily high ego. So the title is Titans or Titanics. Their year of sacrifice is real. Heroically, they dominate 2,000 men. It was only men in those days. They're honored everywhere they go, and on their words we normal mortals hang. Then we welcomed them as elder statesmen, noble, seasoned, proud. We sought their guidance, had them contribute from strength. So why aren't they content to gracefully accede to such a role with dignity? Instead, they're mad their glory days are done, no longer prima donnas, now they're just another voice. And oh, how insecure, like naughty kids where mischief's never far away. Hustling machos, bullies, charmers, they lobby, spar and flex their muscles in grotesque and shabby ways. Fierce campaigns touch off from just a rumor, vendettas rage from slights alleged. These insiders quote the rules and craft their resolutions in support of petty, violent feuds. Their triumphs come from building conference mountains out of molehills of their minds. Nice, clean linens really dirtied up and then self-righteously washed out in public, always in the name of Rotary, of course. It's so pathetic to be comical. But for the rest of us, among whom adults dominate, we'd rather not be used as cannon fodder for the generals of yesteryear. We've come for something else.
Wonderful. Excellent. That's super. How was that received when they...
No, well, I don't think it was received.
Okay.
It's sufficiently after the event now for it to be received.
Right.
I just want to read you something here from the curriculum vitae of the Rotary Club of Nairobi, as recorded by Friedel Savage, who is the wife of John Savage, who immediately preceded me as chairman. And it was for the spouses' luncheon in January 2002. And in it she writes about 1992, a year of fond memories, when finally the ladies found their way into our midst. They brought with them an exhilarating breath of fresh air. Mind you, there had been ladies in Rotary as far back as 1911, when the first Women's Rotary Club was formed in Minneapolis, USA. I'm sorry to say I never did find out what happened to them. Their club just seems to have vanished without trace. It would take almost 8 decades before lady members fought their way back into this man-only domain. My first lady, the Rotary Club of Nairobi's first lady, was a witty, charming and dedicated Rotarian, proposed by a Rotarian evidently aware of even more of her many qualities. Whether or not we read her numerous entries in the various who's who publications of successful women of the world, I cannot recall. I only know that just 30 months after proposing her to me, to the Rotary Club, he proposed again, this time to marry her. I'm thrilled to bits about this unique kind of fellowship among those two of my Rotarians who tied the knot in March 1995. And those two Rotarians are in the room with you here now.
You know, and I was going to ask, but I was going to wait to speak to your wife how you guys met. So there we go. Right. Right. Okay, so we'll continue that discussion when we do the second interview.
Right. I'll just read the final paragraph on this. It is with great pride that I announce she is also my first chair lady. Yet deciding on her correct title still creates quite a bit of tongue tumbling. I've heard her being addressed as Mrs. Chairperson, Chairman Miss, and best of all, Madam Chair. Hence, her wearing the now heavy chain of office has turned into a real verbal treat for me during 2001 too, when Eldon was chair. Apart from my delight over the amount of goodwill, fellowship and work for the community generated under her leadership.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I think we have what we need, but yeah, this is the first 2 Rotary podcasts, so it's really an honor to start with the 2 of you actually, so thank you.